What's going on, everybody?
What's up?
How are we doing on this
Oh my
beautiful
god.
Thursday?
What's up, everyone? Sorry, I had so many tabs open and could just hear all of us in echoing in our full glory and was
It's great. The
so
reaction, I was like, is she
confused.
playing a horror game right now?
Don't mind me.
How's everybody doing? Hey, Crow Show, welcome. Thank you
What
for
is
joining.
up? Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for checking us out. Thank you for the raid. Thank you for the hype.
Thank you for the raid. Yeah.
What is up, everybody?
Hope everyone is doing very well. We have a lot of news for you today. One piece of news that we'll get to later. I just want to mention it now. One I'm really excited about, and KAISA was like, we're going to talk about this, right? We're going to be talking about that Splinter Cell animated series that's coming out.
Yes.
So hyped about this because I think this now confirms that we know Splinter Cell's coming back. Before we get into that, let's lead with one of the topics we were talking about at the end of yesterday's show.
Yes, we have an update from yesterday. So you know how we said that Riot and LEC, which is European League of Legends, was partnering with Neom, which was terrible because it's this Saudi Arabian city, and the leader there, the crown prince, has been tied up with a lot of controversy about human rights abuses. Well, there was enough backlash on Twitter that Riot has totally scrapped that partnership. It announced via the LEC Twitter that it wasn't going to do that anymore. They're backing out of that partnership. That partnership is no more. In the comment section, there were a lot of League of Legends pros and casters saying, thank you so much for reconsidering. Thank you, Riot Games. Thank you, Riot Games. There was another tweet that said, just so you know, bullying on the internet works, which I don't think should be the main takeaway, but it did show that, backlash from people on social media does work in making a change. So good job, everyone.
This was very, very important in one of those moments of getting that update and being like, yeah, this is great to see Riot responding and recognizing the mistake that they made. And now to see, hopefully, other individuals that were partnering up with them will either distance themselves or they'll remove the funding that is helping this project go forward.
Right. So I love to see some justice happening, or at least, these companies really caring about what their user base says. I mean, I think this was a big move. I was saying how I was considering not playing League of Legends anymore.
Yes.
A lot of people were, totally gutted. Stuff like this really matters to gamers and consumers. And now that we have social media and the Twitter sphere, for better or for worse, at least, people's voices can be heard, more than they otherwise would have.
Absolutely. Let those voices be heard.
Let them be heard. But our next piece of news is super exciting. It's about Resident Evil Village and how Resident Evil Village will get a VR version, and we have details on enemies, locations, and more.
So let's start off by saying this is a rumor. However, the source behind this information has pretty much proven itself to know what's going on when it comes to Resident Evil. So we know that Resident Evil Village, the 8th main entry into the survival horror series by Capcom, recently underwent an ambassador playtest, and new details on the game have emerged online.
A new report posted on Biohazard Declassified revealed some new details on the game, such as enemies, which look and sound ghastly, and location.
And this is what some of the information was showing. The enemies within these areas are very pale, almost rotten skin, with tattoos on their foreheads and hands. Some have armor, and some have armor, but not like knight armor because they can be shot off. They only speak of the normal type enemies in the test and not of the quote unquote werewolf creatures which have been spoken on and was shown in the trailer.
Thank you so much, Kai, for the dono.
Hey, thank you, Kai.
With more news for Resident Evil Village, they do speak in distorted foreign language. Some carry daggers, swords, axes, and even spears. There are some without armed weapons. They jump and grab and bite, similar to Resident Evil 3, and you can button mash to take less damage. Some enemies will throw you to the ground instead of biting. The one with the sword has a special attack that can instantly behead Ethan, and according to one source, you'll recognize the move once you play the game.
And most of the rooms they saw were bright, and a few of the bedrooms were dark, and the segment was somewhere within the castle on a higher level, and you need to actually go and find a key to open the big doors to end up going downstairs.
Some new details on a Resident Evil Village boss fight have also emerged. The fight against Olga will feature a good mixture of stealth and shooting.
So once opening the door in this playtest, there was a lady in black named Olga who appeared and then releases a swarm of insects, something we have seen in Resident Evil before. And the player won't have to actually fight the insects unless she ends up seeing you. And she has a maniacal evil laugh constantly whenever she spots you.
In this boss fight, players grabbed a torch to use fire to scare her insects off to get Olga exposed to shoot her. After a bit of shooting, this is kind of a spoiler alert, I just realized, so if you don't want to hear...
It is information regarding the playtest and what we found out about the playtest.
Right. So if you want to play this totally blind,
yes.
You might want to have to mute for about a minute here. So in this boss fight, players grabbed a torch to use fire to scare her insects off to get Olga exposed to shoot her. After a bit of shooting, she'll transform into this insect spider-like creature with long spider legs and releasing more insects coming out from her insect-like underside. Her human remains are still there, but naked and covered with black goo. After the defeat, she melted and some parts of skeletons covered in the goo remained, and she drops an item. She also released all of her insects, to which the player will find and kill to stop them from attacking you in certain rooms. After that, the demo ended.
So, I am believing that this is a demo we're eventually going to see and get our hands on outside of a closed type of playtest. As when the session ended, there was a talk with producer Peter Fabiano, who revealed that the game may be getting an unfair difficulty level featuring triple the number of enemies. Additionally, he also confirmed that a Resident Evil Village VR version will happen, but the announcement will be made once Sony is ready, hinting at a possible announcement of the new PlayStation VR headset. And again, we know that Resident Evil launches sometime later this year, expectedly, but there has been no date confirmed yet.
This is all really exciting news for me. I'm always impressed with what Resident Evil can do. I think no matter how much the games change, whether it's about Ethan, in kind of middle of nowhere America, if you're in a castle with kind of like Spanish villains, if you're on a ship, it still has, a through line of inventory management. The way that you fight a lot of enemies is pretty similar, and the way you always have to count your ammo. I think that Resident Evil always impresses me with how spooky it can be. I think the more I play the games, the less terrifying it is and the more fun it is.
Yeah.
But Resident Evil 7 was terrifying.
And especially in VR.
Yes, and especially in VR. And Village looks like it's totally going to match or exceed, that level of just being horrifying and really creepy.
And I'm, not surprised by the virtual reality announcement for the Village, because after what they did seamlessly with 7 and how VR plays out with it and does it so well, it makes sense that Village is just turning around and doing the same thing. The part to that I find really interesting is that admitting the announcement is going to be delayed until they're ready to show the VR for next gen, knowing that we've been talking about the PSVR 2, knowing that there's been patents and all that stuff. It makes me wonder if there's going to be some announcement soon within the next couple of months talking about a PSVR 2 bundle with Resident Evil Village.
That would be cool.
As a holiday season type buy, maybe?
That would be really cool. I think Resident Evil is positioning itself as the premier horror VR game, at least to me. I've heard of other, horror VR experiences, but Resident Evil is so scary just on a monitor that I think, in VR really is next level. And with the recent Resident Evil games, they've moved from third person in the older games to first person now. And so it seems like they really, are designing them with VR in mind. Also, with how scary some of the enemies are, you might just be walking down a hallway and, turning corners is scary enough, but then enemies like break through the walls, which is just, it's so scary. So I'm really impressed, I'm really looking forward to see what they can do. As you said, maybe this is going to be part of a bundle. I hope so. I think that this would push, goggles, VR goggles.
It would. And that's something that has been discussed in depth here on Daily Gaming News as well, is that the PSVR 2 is expected to be that console VR that people who have a console want to jump into VR space will be able to, and they're going to have a pretty good experience, as it is expected that the PlayStation VR 2 is going to be of a top-notch quality similar to the Valve Index. And so that's something that's really going to benefit Sony as being the only console at home that plays virtual reality titles.
Right, and we've seen that, you know, with there was like a patent or a rumor that the PlayStation VR was working on like a Knuckles kind of technology similar to the Valve Index. I don't know how good the Valve Index audio is, if anyone in the chat has played it, but with the PS5, there's going to be 3D Tempest audio, and I wonder if that technology is going to be, you know, integrated into the PSVR 2. If it is, I think that would be...
With its scary games, I don't want it. I don't want the 3D sounds. I want to be able to turn it off.
I think it would be so next level if it is. Also, I hope it would come at a slightly cheaper price point, you know, if it works in tandem with the PS5 versus just getting, you know, a set of like a Valve Index that you'd have to use with your PC. Maybe you don't have the right specs for that, but you definitely know that, you know, a PSVR 2 and the PS5 would work very well together.
Which right there is a selling point in and of itself. As Guff's saying there, this is a selling point. Is you're probably going to get people jumping over to more now with knowing, hey, look, it's a top of the line VR. My console is going to be able to handle it. It's going to be comparable to having a PC VR type experience. And you're going to get some PlayStation VR exclusives that you can't find anywhere else and only going to be able to experience them on PSVR 2, while probably seeing a lot of developers make games that might not have initially come out on PSVR, but now they are going to start coming out for PSVR 2 when it's announced.
I wonder if there's going to be kind of packages of games that can be played on PC, or games that can be played not on VR and VR being bundled with the PlayStation. Because when I buy a game on like the Oculus Store, I can only play that in those goggles and not on my PC. But if maybe I buy a game on the PlayStation 5, I could also play the VR version with the PSVR 2. I think that might be cool to have kind of that transfer, or to have like your store account, you know, be a part of your goggles versus just kind of like another store and another, you know, interface that you have to use.
Yeah, I think with the way I see it now with the UI when I use PSVR, it's seamless. You just throw the headset on, it recognizes it right away, and it lets you use it. So when you look at what is probably going to be the case for PSVR 2, I think it's going to stick in that same realm. But this is exciting for Resident Evil: The Village. I think this brings more hype to the experience, and staying in that virtual reality topic is more virtual reality announcements have been made, which is that Microsoft's Flight Simulator, which looks like to be the most beautiful game ever made, is also going to be getting VR.
Yeah, you can live out your dreams as a pilot if you can't be a pilot in real life for whatever reason. So VR support, one of the most requested features for the forthcoming Microsoft Flight Simulator, has been confirmed, and it'll be launching alongside the HP's Reverb G2 headset when it hits shores and stores later this year.
So while VR support isn't exclusive to that headset, it will make its first experience there before rolling out 2 other headsets. Microsoft's head of Flight Simulator, Jorg Newman, told Eurogamer, we're starting with them, the HPV Reverb. There's some extra work to be done for some of the other headsets. And I mean, we're going to bring it to all devices, all the common ones. It's just going to take a few more months after that.
VR support will be a free update, and it forms part of an ongoing support package that will see a meaningful release every month. Track IR has just been introduced as a part of the new beta, while seasonal conditions are also slated for the future alongside shared cockpit functionality.
So VR support is set to be the first major update after Microsoft Flight Sims releases on August 18th, followed by a free world update, and then a free sim update before the first paid DLC hits after that, with another 2 free updates also scheduled before the second paid DLC lands.
So many updates. I bet Red Dead Online players are very jealous about this whole schedule. I think VR is super cool. Great choice that they're adding this to a Microsoft Flight Simulator. I really like the addition of seasons, you know, having a shared cockpit. You can have a co-pilot. I think that's super cool. I wonder how that would work with online. Interesting that they're releasing this with the HP's Reverb G2 headset. We were talking a little bit about this headset and how it was kind of being marketed towards businesses for some reason, and it's kind of maybe the more mainstream version of the Valve Index. It's better than like an Oculus Quest, but not quite as advanced as the Valve Index. It's kind of a nice in between point.
I think that's where maybe the agreement with Microsoft lies is in with the development of the headset. It's pushing more towards that Windows mixed reality experience. Is that they're trying to get, more people to jump into the quote unquote virtual reality space while trying to entice anyone who owns Microsoft Flight Simulator is most likely an individual with a sizable budget, because what you need specs wise on your PC to be able to run it, and then to possibly do it in VR, and to know some people have the full setups where it's like the entire cockpit. This does make sense that they're trying to, again, push the virtual reality headsets towards that community while also making an announcement of like, hey, you normal everyday player who wants to get into virtual reality, here's the Reverb headset. And guess what? Right now you can play Microsoft's Flight Simulator with it.
Kind of all the people I know who play Microsoft Flight Simulator are pretty diehard about it. As you said, like some might have the whole the whole rig, or they'll have like the joystick, to fly the plane with, and they have all kind of the tech around it. Like people who play Microsoft Flight Simulator are usually very much into Flight Simulator. This isn't super casual, even though it's totally cool if you're more casual, want to get into this game. It just is expensive, and I think that probably separates who they're really trying to target here. I agree, this is a cool way to kind of bring more people into VR, even though this is more for the kind of what is it, it's kind of the niche market, the early adopters. I think this is still a little bit more for people who do have a lot of money to spend, who are okay with buying a new VR goggles, brand new goggles that have been very recently designed. And I'm looking forward to all these updates. I feel like this is Microsoft Flight Simulator is going to be the next version of Slow TV, where I'm going to put on a YouTube video just like flying over the world, 8-hour video.
And the more we have to deal with this global pandemic and staying indoors, there might be a sense of like, I just need that, feeling of traveling, that need to be able to say I'm getting out and going places, because they're recapturing real life locations and landmarks that you'll be flying over. So there is that element there of being like, this is an escape for me to play Microsoft Simulator. It's chill. I'm not, being stressed by having to worry about enemies attacking me, and like going and having to deal with all that stuff that comes with many online type experiences. And it's just a moment to decompress, get away. And the only thing you're stressed about is, am I going to crash or not?
When you said there are no enemies, it reminded me of Snakes on a Plane. I wonder if someone's going to add the Snakes on the Plane mod to Microsoft Flight Simulator. Someone please do that. I love how Ray says, I used to work on planes, much more buttons in the cockpit than what's been shown so far on the Flight Simulator. I don't know. I've never played Flight Simulator. I've never worked on a plane. I wonder if it is kind of just like a more consumer-friendly, watered-down version that's, not super simulating the experience, but as you said, Marrone, just something like relaxing, get prepared for your GF Plays Microsoft Flight Simulator ASMR videos to come out, kind of vibes.
I think there is, especially the ones with the actual cockpit that can be used with it, there are some elements, or there is a type of extension of Flight Simulator where people can log in legitimate flying hours in Microsoft's Flight Simulator, and it count towards getting their pilot's license. And there's a story, I don't think it's a legend, I think that it's true. There was a story of someone who flew a plane.
I remember this.
Because they had training in Microsoft's Flight Simulator, and they were actually able to steer that plane and land it because of that experience. So they do use that. And I think it might actually be going in that direction of like, this is a legitimate simulator for if you want to learn to fly someday.
Right, I'm trying to look this up. I can't find this article. I'm like, was that real, or was that
like 10 years ago? It was like a random story when it happened that I remember seeing. I want to say I saw it on the news because it was just so odd. I remember sitting there being like, what? Really?
Like, really?
Yeah.
Did you? A cursory search. I think some people have tried to attempt it since, but they are more along the lines of like, oh, this person thought they could fly the plane, but they didn't try to land it.
Oh, interesting.
So I think there may be some
sense.
copycats since then that haven't been quite as successful.
I would say landing is probably the scariest part of that, and just getting up in the air. You're like, oh, thank God. I hope I never have to land.
So if you plan to play Microsoft Flight Simulator, especially on VR, you are not officially a pilot. It is just for fun, as I'm sure many of you know, but I feel like we just had to say that disclaimer just in case anyone said, yeah, DGN told me that I could do this.
It's so funny. That is true. Good thinking there. Our next story is one that has a really interesting question at the heart of this is, do we need E3 anymore?
Do we need E3 anymore? What do you think, chat? Because this is the first year where we can actually see the ramifications of not having an event on the press and social coverage created for publishers and their products. Up until now, any case built around proving the diminishing importance of E3 would have been based on a theoretical condition, since it's never actually missed a year, going all the way back to 1995.
Let's take the debuts of Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. The first officially announced initially announced back towards the end of April, and the second done during the PS5 Future of Gaming stream. Both titles received strong press coverage in the first 72 hours after their announcement, and Ubisoft's long-running franchise in particular scoring much higher than any game debuted at E3 last year during that same time span of 3 days after the announcement. This even includes games featured during major press conferences such as Elden Ring and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
The same also holds true for titles outside the AAA classification, with smaller mid-tier games like Worms Rumble and Bugsnax creating comparable levels of press coverage to similar-sized titles revealed at E3 2019, like No More Heroes 3 and Blair Witch.
In fact, when comparing press coverage of further games revealed during last year's E3 with those announced during this year's summer, the results again show that 2020's efforts have proven very fruitful. Taking that larger sample of titles, the average number of articles received in the first 72 hours from their announcement at E3 2019 per game is slightly down by 5% than games announced as a part of the online event during the summer. It's also over a fifth lower than games announced without the use of one at all.
What's even more remarkable is that if you widen this range to include coverage up until a whole week post-announcement, E3 2019 falls even further behind 2020 announcements, with the average article count now 22% lower than event-tied debuts this year and a massive 60% lower than isolated ones.
So as much as E3 often gets praised for its flurry of games that it has in attendance, these statistics also highlight a problem within it too. This higher population of titles has an impact on the potential coverage a single game is able to achieve during E3, since it's competing with so many others. The spread out nature of 2020's events, meanwhile, looks to have allowed new game reveals and information time to circulate, as opposed to battling it out for the spotlight all at once during an event like E3.
And it's not just press coverage either, where 2020 has seen a stronger performance for its announcements. YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook all show equally encouraging results. Once again, when looking at the 72 hours after each game's announcement, all three social outlets would see a 2020 announcement in the top spot for total coverage and interactions, such as Crash Bandicoot 4 for YouTube and Facebook, and Assassin's Creed Valhalla for Twitter. In fact, when looking at the 10 best performing products, 2020 announcements would claim more spots for each of the social media platforms than those from E3 2019.
And what we're observing as we look at this information is not a year where games are suffering with the loss of a proper E3 event, but rather one that seems to be continuing moving forward through other equally successful means. And if the announcement of a sequel in the once long dormant Crash Bandicoot franchise can reap a stronger online presence than that the likes of Star Wars games and a sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, then 2020 must actually be doing something right.
I think it's important. Personally, I think it's also important to note that more people are, staying inside, and this has been, a blockbuster year for games. So I think this year is also an anomaly in that regard. But this data does show that we don't really need E3. I remember going to E3 last year and I was talking to someone about the announcements or doing like a video about it. And they're like, oh, well, unless you post a video or write an announcement that day, it's worthless. Like if you wait until Monday, it's already too late, which kind of shows how much pressure there is to get all these articles out. And, everyone's competing, to get the most views and all these outlets, for the same things, for the same announcements at E3 versus now when things are more spread out, it's possible for each game to get its own spotlight.
Yeah, and it's interesting that when we take a look at allowing a game to come out, not have to battle with the possible popularity of major titles like an Assassin's Creed or a Halo, that they can just kind of sit out there for a little bit of time, see if they get a natural reaction just based on gameplay footage or, just a general overview that the other outlets tend to do. Whereas that might get overlooked at an event like E3, and those outlets aren't able to cover everything, so they pick and choose. You have the possibility of these independent companies or these mid-tier gaming studios getting the recognition they do deserve, that a lot of us will say, how did I not hear about this game? Or why was I never aware of this title as it's been out for as long as it has? And it might actually derive from the fact that they just can't get the coverage at E3 due to the fact it's like a AAA baseball player being in the room with a Major League Baseball player. People are going to focus on the Major League Baseball player before they talk to the lower tier one. So we could actually be seeing something that the gaming industry in and of itself desires more of for how we learn about future games.
Totally. And someone in chat mentioned that like book conventions are fun. You get to go up and meet up with your friends and hang out. E3 is not that kind of convention. E3 was initially, for the industry. It's for industry insiders, industry professionals.
Yeah.
It's only recently that E3 has kind of opened up more to be consumer facing, which a lot of people have mixed feelings about. And E3 has turned kind of into Coachella, where it's just like a status symbol if you get to go.
Yes.
Like, oh, I went to E3, whether that means you were networking with people or not. When I went to E3, there was a huge section of just like closed off kind of like office cubicle things with all these doors on it. And there were so many of them. And a lot of people are just like running around with their clipboards and briefcases. And it is about meetings. There is that element of like fun and bonanza, but that's not really the focus of E3.
Yeah.
I think that E3 had also kind of like lost its way a little bit by turning into a consumer event. Like it's okay if it wants to be a consumer event, but it seems like it I don't know. I wasn't really a fan of it. And so I wonder what this means for E3 next year or the year after. Who knows if LA is going to be okay by next summer.
Yeah.
But
I hope we find a way to hybrid it maybe, like to find a way where there is an online presence for E3 over a couple of months, and then the live in-person one maybe has to deal with the top tier titles that everybody's looking forward to. And then the lower mid-tier ones can get the recognition through social media. And that would be a great way to like merge the two, especially if we're in a vaccinated, experience and starting to behave like normal.
Right. I think that's a good idea. It doesn't have to be all or nothing to be this big convention space over just a couple days or a few days. I think it could be a hybrid, to showcase the smaller games as well as the big ones, maybe spread it out a little longer over the course of maybe 2 weekends or the whole week in the weekend or something that really will, really utilize all the value that's there. Because I think a lot of the value that E3 brings is kind of, forgotten about or kind of lost, among the announcements of just big AAA titles.
Yeah, and we'll definitely keep our eye on this. We'll see what happens with next year. Does this translate? Does it become hey, it's no longer here, it's now Summer's Games Fest, or some sort of individual, studios or distributor doing their own event? We're not too sure, but it's great to talk about, because the more that we see people talk about this, the more likely, like the Riot conversation regarding Neom, we'll see E3's response to what does the gaming community want, what do they prefer, and how do we stick around to provide it to them and not possibly, lose our way by continuing down the same road and people don't want it.
Speaking of continuing down the same road, our next story is 8 years into development. Star Citizen fans are increasingly upset that Star Citizen is still being Star Citizen.
So, while the wider world has accepted that Star Citizen and its single-player spin-off Squadron 42's campaign are perhaps never coming out, those who paid for the game back in 2012 have either paid or kept playing since. And these individuals are growing increasingly unhappy at developer Cloud Imperium Games' lack of apparent progress and communication.
Would love to hear from the chat about your experience with Star Citizen. I know Coombs plays a lot with Zan. Shout out to Zan. And if there's enough content, if it seems like it's kind of aimless, what is it still fun to play Star Citizen? So the latest bout of fan unrest concerns Squadron 42, a game once due in 2016 specifically. In March, CIG released a development roadmap promising more regular updates on the game, saying, "We found that the format in which we've attempted to visualize our progress linearly does not match the approach we're taking in the development of Squadron 42.
They went on to say, and we want to be clear, progress on Squadron 42 is happening, and we're broadly happy with that progress. But we know that our roadmap is not reflecting that progress."
It's now nearly August, and fans haven't seen or heard a thing, prompting Reddit posts and threads on the game's own forums complaining about this and asking, sometimes in less polite terms, what's up?
And in response, Cloud Imperium Games did release a news statement that says they're now working on a new roadmap, but it's not ready. And this is what they went on saying, because it is still very much in development. We can't share as much about it as we would like. And honestly, that statement hilariously lines up with what they continue to say.
What's up, Adros? Cheers. Sorry, I tried to drink that fast to get back to this article. So the statement winds up with, while it's not quite ready, it's currently top priority on the web team's current projects. In the immediate future, we plan to deliver the following communications.
Give an example of the goals of our new roadmap and what we expect from it.
Show a rough mock-up of the proposed new roadmap.
Share a work-in-progress version of the roadmap for at least one of our core teams.
And then finally transition to this new roadmap.
Quick moment.
What?
Did you just say the same thing 4 different times in a
yes,
different way?
We did.
But never really gave us anything that we could actually take away from it?
Yes, absolutely.
I can't believe
that's exactly what we did.
They posted this.
This is honestly embarrassing.
And we have to take note about this, is that last month, Star Citizen's funding drive, which began in 2012 to the question in there of how long has it been in development from Ray. It passed last month the $300 million mark. And in 2018, there was a post written about Squadron 42, which ended with Cloud Imperium saying, "We will publish the full roadmap of Squadron 42's release in December of 2018.
This is so horrible. So their comment about the roadmap is pretty much, if I was like, if Marrone's like, "Hey, Kaisa, did you send me that email?" I'll be like, "You know what, Marrone? I'm going to plan this email. And then I'm going to write down that plan. And then I'm going to tell you what that plan is. And then I'm going to make sure I execute that plan. And I will tell you when I execute that plan to send you that email." And I'm sure Marrone's going to be thinking, sounds good.
This sounds great. It is clear as day to me what you intend to do with this email in all forms that an email is possible. I look forward to getting your email.
Like, that's what the statement was about Star Citizen.
It's been a couple years. Where's that email?
It's a nothing statement. I know. Let me just plan out another roadmap for you. What's up, Smoking? Welcome to the stream.
Hey, thank you so much for the follow. Also, Adelius Maximus, thanks for joining the DTN fam as well.
Oh yeah, welcome. This is just so horrible to read. I know some people really like Star Citizen. They think it's cool. I think it's a cool concept, but waiting 8 years for this game Squadron 42 is supposed to be released in 2018. It hasn't happened. It makes me wonder, like, what's really happening? Are any of the people working on this project, like, is this their main job? Is this like a side project that they just have never really gotten quite around to finishing to? Are there like horrible, is there like horrible project planning? Who knows? Because it seems like they have enough money.
$300 million. $300 million. I'm sorry, that's just a ridiculous amount of money to be
That's
saying
wild.
and regurgitating the same information over and over again. And why we're all kind of sitting here talking about this right now is because somebody who's like 8 years later, yeah, it's taken a little while for the community to be like, wait a second, is this ever going to actually come out? What did I pay for? What am I involved with? Wow, I'm now realizing it some 8 years later. We need to start complaining about this.
For real, as Ray says, I was speculating on that too, to totally start a rumor based on nothing. Like, maybe that $300 million was spent on something else? Has it even been spent on, like, creating this game?
Look at what Guff just put into the chat, and this is great. This is why I love everyone who comes in here and chats with us, and they add just so many layers to the conversation. The fact that the budget for Red Dead Redemption 2 was between 80 to 100 million, and you're saying Star Citizen has 3 times a AAA studio like Rockstar to execute their idea, and they haven't been able to execute, is one that should cause everyone to be concerned who's invested in Star Citizen.
That's bad news. That would not make me want to invest in this game or, buy this game or buy anything in this game. If I'm wondering, like, where is this money actually going? Like, you think it's going to be going towards, finally finishing it, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon.
No, and this is unfortunate because I think it's a great concept. It's a concept that hooks everyone. And when I've seen people play it, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. It has like the elements of Elite Dangerous and No Man's Sky. And then just, it adds a lot to the layers of combat. That kind of feeling of that survival, extreme survival. It's great, but then it's just kind of like, well, outside of that, what do I have here? Do I actually have a campaign? Is there something to keep me coming back, or is this more of just kind of like, here's your general outer space experience, and that's it? It's very surface level. And as Ray was suggesting, we just decided to go buy some Lambos and take a vacation, and we'll see you guys later.
That's what it sounds like. This also makes me so sad for any indie developers who might be listening that go like, what I could do with $300 million for like my game that I want to make. Meanwhile, this company, has this much money and they still haven't been able to, launch this or really have an answer for their fans. I hope we hear something good about this game. I am speculating that maybe in 3 years' time, we're just going to hear more of the same thing. And I don't know, hopefully people forget about it, I guess.
Yeah, well, there's another community, not just the Star Citizen community, that's a little upset. It's also the community around one of EA's newer titles that was supposed to be, in their mind, I guess, this success, but it looks like Rocket Arena is failing.
Oof. So while rival publishers like Ubisoft have found success with Hyperscape, EA's own new multiplayer release seems to have been a huge failure. Just 2 weeks after launching explosive arena shooter Rocket Arena, the game has been put on sale.
And it remains at full price on Steam, but on Origin, EA's own storefront, Rocket Arena has been heavily discounted.
The Rocket Arena Standard Edition, which only comes with the game, is 83% off. The Rocket Arena Mythic Edition, which features multiple mythic cosmetics and the game's premium currency, Rocket Fuel, is now 75% cheaper.
This stunning discount is not the only suggestion that Rocket Arena hasn't set the gaming world on fire. Data from SteamDB revealed that the game has had a peak of just 142 concurrent players in the last 24 hours. And its peak concurrent players were 913, and that was on July 14th, the day the game was released.
I remember, and some of you in the chat probably remember, that a bunch of big streamers were playing this game on Twitch. I think I saw like Lyric playing this. There were big streamers. I don't know how much that was, organic versus paid sponsorships, but this got a lot of time, on the top streams here. So Rocket Arena, so according to this article, does not appear to be a bad game. Its core gameplay of acrobatic and explosive gameplay is fun, but not groundbreaking. Its heroes and abilities are also not unlike Overwatch, Paladins, or the dozens of other hero shooters that have been released over the last 5 years. And just to add my personal take to this game looks fun. It also seems like it's for kids. Personally, yes. I think that this is geared towards, I don't know, maybe 11-year-old gamers, maybe 13-year-old gamers. But to a lot of us who are a little bit older than that, I couldn't see myself having fun playing this game, for example.
And it seems that part of that resistance stems from EA deciding to charge for the game. Rocket Arena is a new intellectual property from EA, a publisher known more for its sports simulators and traditional multiplayer modes than its standalone multiplayer titles. And this is what made EA's free-to-play shooter Apex Legends so compelling when it launched in early 2019, is that it was free.
Gladiator says sleeper game. So EA's relative lack of a track record in this space, combined with the premium price, have contributed to an unsuccessful title. This is also why just 2 weeks after release, Rocket Arena is now available for peanuts compared to its launch price. But really, I think it should have been free from the start.
Absolutely, it should have, because without players, Rocket Arena won't be available for much longer. The game is salvageable, though, and by making the new multiplayer title free to play, it could bring it new life and may be able to take it somewhere and live up to Gladiator's comment of sleeper game.
I wish this game was free and then maybe they added, new cosmetics, or maybe there's like some currency that you can buy and you can unlock characters, but you could also just earn XP to unlock those characters as well. I think would work for this game. It's so sad to hear those concurrent player numbers of a peak of 913.
913.
That reminds me of...
And concurrent at 142.
142 players in the last 24 hours. And this is a 3-on-3. I can't imagine that you're going to, have a lot of different games. That reminds me of when I played Disc Jam a few months ago, and we went onto Disc Jam multiplayer and we were trying to see, what the concurrent player count was. But it was really, if you wanted to matchmake, you would be with the same 2 people again and again and again and again, because no one was just online, and that makes it even less fun to play.
Yep, especially if the people you're playing against know what they're doing and you just happen to queue up with those individuals. I mean, when you think about it, it's rough. Those numbers are very, very bad, and I think the immediate reaction should be to turn around, do an immediate free-to-play, do some sort of like free Founders Edition, make something enticing to get people to come in and jump in and play, give them some of the currency that you use, the rocket fuel for free, like do something to pull people in. Dauntless did this early on. If they could do something like that, it could probably draw up some interest and get people to jump back in. Or EA should just accept its loss and move on from Rocket Arena and try to figure out a different multiplayer game, a multiplayer standalone game to focus on.
I think so too. I'm honestly surprised that this is from EA. I thought it was going to be of a smaller studio. My first impression when looking at the characters is at least all the female characters are very similar. Like they're all very svelte in general. And I'm like, I think we're kind of beyond that now. Like if you even look at, Overwatch, there's different ethnicities, there's different body types there. And I think just to see how many female characters are here, maybe like 7, to see 7 all kind of look pretty similar, kind of raises an eyebrow for me. I agree with Chat. I agree with what you said. This should be free to play. There should be something, offered to those people who did pay money for it, whether it's a refund or, some special Founders Edition, some special items that you get with it. The game looks cool. It doesn't look like a bad game. It just looks like it was priced poorly. And it
fit a different model than the model that they led with.
Right, exactly. And it also shows that if you just throw a bunch of money at influencers, that's not necessarily going to lead you to have a successful launch.
Yeah, and I echo what Crow, the Crow Show is saying right there. It is a good model. The free-to-play model does work. We know that it works, and it can work very well. And you don't want developers who put their time and their effort and their energy into something for it to fail. I don't want to see that happen. I want to see it executed. I want to see it successful. I want to see the overall health of the gaming community continue to grow. So yeah, hopefully they do turn it around and create a better outcome for the people who do enjoy it and maybe have yet to learn that they do enjoy this game.
I hope so too. But a game that we know that we enjoy is coming out with an animated series, as there is a Splinter Cell animated series from John Wick writer Derek Kolstad, set at Netflix.
So Netflix and Ubisoft have teamed up for an adult animated series adaptation of the video game Splinter Cell. This was learned by Variety.
Derek Kolstad, best known for his work writing the John Wick film franchise, will serve as writer and executive producer on the series. According to sources, the series has received a 2-season, 16-episode order at the streaming service.
I just want to take a moment here and do a little dance, just because I'm so happy to see this and know this information's occurring. I'm like, yes, more Splinter Cell.
Yes.
So the first Splinter Cell game was released back in 2002. It was from the Tom Clancy game series, but it also received critical universal acclaim from critics as well as fans. Massive sales happened for Splinter Cell. It became the conversation of what's the stealth game to have. Is it Metal Gear Solid? Is it Splinter Cell? And we talked about it for decades. And the game follows former U.S. Navy SEAL Sam Fisher after he's recruited by the NSA to work for the mysterious Third Echelon Division within the agency. The game sees Fisher engage in a number of Black Ops missions employing stealth and military tactics.
The game has spawned 6 sequels as well as a series of novels. A Splinter Cell film has been in the works for years now, apparently, and Tom Hardy has been attached to star as Fisher going back to 2012, but the project is currently considered inactive, so I don't know exactly what happened with that.
That is true, as Kolstad has worked on all 3 John Wick films that have been produced to date, with the films having grossed over $584 million worldwide. Kolstad other credits include creating the Quibi series Die Hard with Kevin Hart and John Travolta, and he also worked on the Falcon and Winter Soldier series over at Disney+, and he has a feature called Nobody at Universal, which is set to release next year, while Falcon and Winter Soldier is expected to debut later this year.
I had to check if it was supposed to be Die Hard, because earlier in the article we're referencing it wrote Tom Hard and not Tom Hardy. And so I was wondering if Die Hard was actually featuring Kevin Hart or if that was something strange as well. So Splinter Cell is not the first series that will see Ubisoft team up with a streamer. By streamer, we mean Netflix, not like Marrone or myself.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, just
though we'd happily take that partnership.
We would. If you're casting anyone, I'm sure we'd love to be considered.
We're here. We're ready.
So the company also produces the Apple TV Plus series Mythic Quest. That show hails from Rob McElhenney, Charlie Day, and Megan Gans, and follows the team at a game development studio responsible for creating a World of Warcraft type online role-playing game. The series was renewed for a 2nd season ahead of the series premiere, and Ubisoft also previously adapted their game Assassin's Creed into a film starring Michael Fassbender in 2016, which apparently was not a good film. So I hope that has nothing to do with this animated series for Splinter Cell that we're going to be seeing.
Yeah, I can't agree more. No focus on the Assassin's Creed film.
Everyone forget about that.
Let's
Wipe that out of your memory.
Not ever see that happen. What I really am excited about to see here is kind of like Netflix bringing in The Witcher, and now they're bringing in Splinter Cell. Is it going to become the space that Netflix has realized, especially with gamifying one of their very popular shows with the Bandersnatch experience? Is this potentially going to be where Netflix is seeing that its growth will be more so bolstered? Because, gamers have it on your consoles. So you have it, you have access to those apps. Will it become the space where gaming content is now being seen? Because they've already ordered 2 seasons of this. They've already put in that kind of investment.
They're ready. I think it would be really cool I don't know if I'd want this to be kind of Bandersnatchy, but I think that's a cool thing to have on Netflix and to see more of. I know Minecraft Story Mode was on Netflix, not sure if it still is, and it is a choose your own adventure. I think that would be a cool way to kind of, cross over film and TV and games together. In general, this is just such good IP, Splinter Cell, and I'm glad. I hope this is going to be finished, because we never saw the Splinter Cell film with Tom Hardy finished, which is just a tragedy because I love Tom Hardy. I don't know what happened with that. As Chat says, maybe it was spent on Lambos and mansions again. Who knows where that money went, or if that project just kind of fell apart. Yeah. I think my one reservation is that I don't know how long these projects are going to be delayed because of the COVID crisis. because all of these have been announced that they're coming out soon or they're going to be worked on. And I just hope that they aren't going to be delayed for a very long time.
Yes, I agree. And I would love to see them show a trailer fairly soon, within 6 months, even if it's just a teaser of the goggles lighting up or whatever. My biggest hope, and if it could occur this way, because I know he might be too old to do anything more, mocap wise or what they do now for creating video games, is that Michael Ironside continues to do the voice for Sam Fisher in this animated series. If they can stick that through, like Kevin Conroy voices most of the Batman animated series that we get, I am fine marrying Michael Ironside to always be some form of voice for Sam Fisher. I really, really hope that's what comes out of this.
Me too. He is Sam Fisher.
Yes.
Like, that voice is the only voice I'd want to hear.
Yeah.
This makes me think of a little bit off topic, but I was reading, there was like there's a new Chicken Run coming out, and I guess in the original one, the voice of Ginger, wanted to be the voice of Ginger in the remake, but it was made like, I don't know, 10, 15 years later, and she was told that she sounded too old. And she was like, my voice doesn't sound any different, and, shopped her voice around and asked others, like, do I sound older? And everyone was like, no, but the studios just thought she sounded older, and therefore she couldn't, reprise her role. I hope we don't see anything like that here. I don't think there's anything wrong with, I think I'd want these same voice actors to do this job, and I'm sure they would as well. I don't think that we need to be limited by, perceptions of age, especially if the work is, spot on.
I'm going to throw something out there real quick, just because it's like a fanboy moment. I'm so excited about this announcement. If they could somehow, because we know his voice was used recently, and when I say his, I'll say the name in a second. We know a voice was used recently in a virtual reality Spec Ops game where David Hayter, the original the voice of Solid Snake, came in and did a voice of the villain in this Spec Ops game.
Ooh.
Now that he's not contractually obligated to Solid Snake, could we please get Michael Ironside and David Hayter in the same animated series and make him either some form of other agent that you know of or the villain? That would be amazing. I would have like just a total nerd epic moment freak out if they could make that occur. Sorry, I just needed to throw that
that would be great. We need to see that. We need ideas like this, going towards these shows. I'm not denying that voices do change as we age, but I would say maybe more for some or others, or in this specific instance of that voice actor, her voice had not changed in that time frame. But for, Michael Ironside, like, even if his did, I would still want him to be the voice of Sam Fisher. Make Sam Fisher maybe 8 years older or something like that in the animated series. Make it work.
Exactly. Make it work. We do have about 7 to 8 minutes left. So last two segments, we've got to make sure it's Thursday. So we always treat our Thursdays with the segment on this day in gaming. And there is a game that we do want to take a moment to recognize. And that is that on this day in gaming, a few years back, Stardew Valley came out for Macintosh.
So 4 years ago today, that is July 30th, 2016, Stardew Valley came out for Mac. Not a super old game, but I didn't realize it was 4 years old already. Happy birthday, Stardew Valley. Happy
birthday, Stardew Valley, because this is one of those games that I want to give a lot of credit to for doing something very well. This developer is not focused on making a cash cow video game with tons of microtransactions and trying to raid your bank accounts. Just trying to give you an amazing experience to have some sort of gardening simulator and just to have this place where you can escape and have an amazing time. And it's so cool to see that, 6 years ago, 4 years ago, when this released for Macintosh, it's still doing very well. It just recently came out on iPhone and Android services. Just continues to show you how strong of a concept this is, and it's being handled correctly.
For any of you who don't know the story about Stardew Valley, you've inherited your grandfather's old farm plot in Stardew Valley. Armed with hand-me-down tools and a few coins, you set out to begin your new life. Can you learn to live off the land and turn these overgrown fields into a thriving home? It won't be easy. Ever since Joja Corporation came to town, the old ways of life have all but disappeared. The community center, once the town's most vibrant hub of activity, now lies in shambles. But the valley seems full of opportunity. With a little dedication, you might just be the one to restore Stardew Valley to greatness.
I just love it, and it's so true. Thank you. See, Kyrie's super excited if you heard her barking in the back. What Crow Show said, Stardew Valley is heckin' cute. Kyrie,
It's heckin' cute.
Thank you. Yes, we know. We all love Stardew Valley. Yes, we do. We appreciate its existence. Thank you. Yeah, this is one of those games that is just constantly adorable, and it always is one of those games that you can play and just receive so much kind of like zen and, joy.
There's nothing bad in this game, really, and it pulls at the heartstrings in ways that you wouldn't realize. Like you're walking around the town and there's nice music and there's nice sounds, and you're chopping down trees and fishing, and then you walk into Joja Mart, which is kind of like a Walmart type corporation, and the audio is just like this droning like AC noise, and everything's like sterile and everything's super corporate, and you're like, get me out of here. And it's kind of a way to harken back to what really matters is people, is plants, animals, things like that. This is not a game where when I play Stardew Valley, I try to make as much money as I can, because I can't help it, but it's not really supposed to be about that.
It's not, and it is, again, just one of those games where if you set out to play it, you're looking for that just wholesome kind of experience.
It's wholesome.
It really is. It's a great game to take a break from other games that may stress you due to the competitive nature, due to the violence, due to what it might require you to have to go through. This is really this isn't stressful. You don't really feel stress other than I just want to make sure my crops are taken care of, and I want to make sure I'm living up to save Stardew Valley. And you're like, yeah.
Yeah, it's ultimate wholesome. I love how we went from talking about Resident Evil Village at the start of the show to now Stardew Valley right at the end. We talk about everything here on DGN.
We do, and I think we can attack this last story very quickly because I think it's important that we just address this, as this information did come out, as there's a game that we're all very, very hyped about, which is Cyberpunk. And however, there have been some fake Cyberpunk beta invites that have gone out.
So CD Projekt Red addressed the fraudulent beta invites on Twitter and said, if you recently received an email claiming to be granting you beta access to Cyberpunk 2077, it's not from us. Unfortunately, there have been more of these being sent out over the past few weeks. If you are being contacted by a third party claiming to be working with CD Projekt Red, for example, a fake ad agency, you can assume it's not genuine. In a separate reply, the studio reaffirmed that it isn't even planning a Cyberpunk 2077 beta to begin with.
And after the most recent Cyberpunk 2077 delay, we know that players are hungrier than ever for a chance to see or dare to dream, get to play a little bit of the game. So it is no surprise that there are some shady third parties deciding to send out a wave of fake beta invites.
Relatedly, it's still possible that we'll see a beta for the Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer component, but that isn't going to be out for a few years at least, so you're not going to hear anything about it for a while. As CD Projekt Red advised, anything you may receive about an upcoming beta is total nonsense, and any Cyberpunk 2077 invites or offers should be double-checked for an @cdprojectred.com email address.
I would just say take mental note there. There is no beta planned, so we shouldn't get our hopes up at all for any type of invite that comes out like that. If you or anyone you know is affected by that, please immediately address this as fake. That's someone trying to phish your information in your account. And it's moments like this where you're just like, come on, don't take advantage of people while we're waiting and hyped for this game, and someone's sitting over there like, how can we, score information? It's just, but I'm glad they came out immediately and addressed this.
Me too. I hate to see scams. Scams are just preying on people who don't know any better. It's just so horrible and dumb. I'm glad that CD Projekt Red was very blunt. They said, this isn't happening. This is fake. There's no beta anyway. Please do not pay attention to this. I hope that gamers are at least maybe a little more savvy, that if they see something like this, they're more likely to double check, check the official Twitter. reach out, be more, internet aware, internet literate. So good on CD Projekt Red. Sad that there's no beta, but at least I won't feel bad about missing out on an invite for one.
That is true, and everyone should do like Coombs said. Everyone point and laugh at the scammers.
Point and laugh.
Scammers.
You tried your best, scammers. You couldn't get us.
You failed. You failed, scammers. You're just a bunch of scamming failures. That's what you are.
That's all they are, but that does bring us to the end of our news show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
We have made it another hour down here on Daily Gaming News, and another Thursday where we take a moment to recognize on this day in gaming as we address the release of Stardew Valley for Macintosh a few years ago. Thank you so much for everyone being involved in the conversation, throwing in amazing comments, and for the new followers and subscribers, thank you so much. This is not possible without the DGN fam.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are live from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific every single weekday. If you're watching this on VOD, also we like to post our VODs on YouTube. You're also going to find them, automatically posted on Twitch here. And right after this show, we're going to run a rerun of today's show and yesterday's show in case you missed it.
So stick around if you want to check it out, and also catch us tomorrow as we'll be back, like Kaisa said, from 1 to 2 p.m. But for today, this Thursday, July 30th, I was about to say I am Kaisa. I am Marrone.
I am Marrone as well.
Kaisa.
I am Kaisa. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to see you tomorrow.
See you next time, everybody.